to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where tonight a quiet winter valley will drift into song as icicles begin to drip dreamy, shimmering notes into the night. As you settle in, let your body sink a little deeper into comfort. Feel the softness beneath you, holding you effortlessly. Allow your shoulders to relax and drop, as if all the weight of the day is sliding away like snow off a warm roof. Take a slow, easy breath in, filling your lungs gently. Hold it for a moment at the top, then exhale long and soft, like a sigh fading into the dark. Another slow breath in, cool and clear, and out again, as calm and quiet as falling snow. Nothing is required of you now. There is nowhere you need to be, but here, in your mind, imagine a world wrapped in winter. See a pale sky brushed with silver clouds and a valley sleeping under a thick, soft quilt of snow. Along the cliffs and the eaves of wooden cottages, icicles hang in delicate rows, catching the last scattered light of evening. Soon, as the night deepens and a gentle thaw begins, those icicles will drip in slow, steady rhythm, each droplet a tiny chiming note in the hush. As you breathe, picture the air in that valley. It is crisp, but not harsh. It smells of pine and distant wood smoke, of cold stones and fresh snow. With every breath out, let a little more of your day fade away into that snowy distance. Let thoughts become lighter, softer, like small flakes drifting down. Now allow the story to unfold in front of you, as if you are simply watching a dream begin. You can rest while the tale carries itself along. In a quiet, hidden valley, surrounded by low mountains and tall, dark pines, there was a village that winter seemed to love especially well. Each year, when the air grew cold enough to ring like crystal, snow would arrive in slow, gentle storms that hushed every street and softened every edge. Roofs grew rounded and white, chimneys sent up thin ribbons of smoke, and the river that wound past the village slowed beneath a skin of ice, sighing softly in its sleep. On the edge of this village, where the last houses gave way to the open, snowy fields, there stood a small cottage with blue shutters and a crooked chimney. Behind it, a path of packed snow led to a rocky ridge. In daylight, the ridge was nothing more than a wall of stone and frozen earth. But when winter deepened and the days grew short, it became something else entirely. There lived in the cottage a quiet young dreamer named Leora. Leora had hair the color of winter wheat and eyes that always seemed to be listening to something distant and soft, even when the room around her was silent. She liked the hush of early morning, the way breath curled like smoke in the cold air, and the intricate lace of frost that drew patterns on the window panes. Most of all, She loved the icicles that formed along the ridge behind her home. Every year, as the first real freeze held the valley in its arms, water would seep through hidden cracks in the stones of the ridge. Drop by patient drop, this water froze into clear, slender blades, growing longer each night. They hung there like rows of glass feathers or thin sleeping bells. Leora would watch them from her window, waiting for the evening when they would begin to drip. For it was said in the village that when the icicles on the ridge began to melt, they did not simply drip. They sang, not loudly and not in any language that people used in their daily lives, but in small, dreamy notes that could only be heard by those who listened with their whole hearts. Some called it a legend. Some said it was only the clever imagination of children. But Leora believed. One evening, deep in the quietest part of winter, the sky turned a soft violet as the sun slid behind the mountains. The air had been a little milder that day, just enough for a thin warmth to brush against the village roofs. Snow had slipped in tiny sighs from branches, and a faint mist rose from the river's slow-moving water. Leora felt that something was changing, something gentle and important. She wrapped herself in a thick woolen shawl, pulled on her boots, and stepped outside. The snow squeaked softly under her feet, the sound small and close in the vastness of the evening. The village was settling for the night. Lights were glowing behind frosted windows, and here and there a door closed with a muffled thud. Somewhere, a dog gave a single sleepy bark. Otherwise, the world was quiet. Leora followed the narrow path behind her cottage, the snowbanks on either side rising higher than her knees. The ridge waited ahead, dark and still, its stone face dressed in shimmering rows of icicles. In the fading light, they caught the last pale colors of the sky and turned them into long streaks of silver and ghostly blue. As she drew closer, she slowed her steps, as though she were approaching a room where someone was softly playing a lullaby. The air grew cooler, more still, as if it too were listening. She could see each icicle clearly now, some as thin as needles, others as thick as her wrist. They hung at different lengths, forming a strange, beautiful forest of glass. Then from one slender tip, a drop of water swelled. It hung there trembling, catching at the last of the light. Slowly, slowly, it grew heavy and fell. It landed on the stone below with a tiny chiming sound, like the farthest, faintest ring of a silver bell. Then another drop, another soft note, and another from a different icicle, slightly higher, slightly brighter in tone. As the evening deepened and the air shifted from day's leftover warmth into the cool of night, more droplets formed, more notes fell. Soon a fragile music filled the space at the foot of the ridge, rising and falling in no pattern that any human hand could have composed, and yet somehow perfectly right. Leora closed her eyes and stood very still. The notes were small, so small that they might have been lost beneath any louder sound. But here, in the valley's deep quiet, they floated clearly. Each one seemed to brush lightly against her thoughts, smoothing them softening their sharp edges. Worries, half-finished errands, questions about tomorrow, all of them grew misty and distant, like footprints filling with new snow. She imagined that the icicles were long glass chimes, and the drops were silent fingers, plucking music from them. The higher icicles sang in thin, delicate tones, while the thicker ones gave soft, round notes, like little bells wrapped in velvet. Together they formed a music that held no urgency, no haste, only the slow, patient rhythm of water changing shape. The sky grew darker, its violet deepening to indigo. A few early stars pricked through, small and bright above the sleeping village. Leora opened her eyes and watched her breath drift into the air like pale fog, then vanish. She could feel the music of the icicles humming faintly in her chest, in the spaces between one heartbeat and the next. There was a story, she remembered, that the elders sometimes told by the fire. They spoke of the valley before the village was built, when only the pines and the stones and the wandering animals knew the seasons. They said that in those days, a spirit of winter walked the ridges and the riverbanks, painting frost across the land. This spirit did not speak with words, but with patterns, with the way snow fell, with the way ice formed, and when the spirit was lonely, it shaped icicles that could sing so that the valley would never feel empty. Listening to the dripping music, Leora wondered if that spirit was near even now, somewhere among the stones and snow. Not as a figure to be seen, but as a presence in the air, in the hush, in the careful, unhurried pace of each melting drop. The thought did not frighten her. It filled her instead with a gentle curiosity, a sense that she was sharing the moment with something ancient and kind. On the branches of a nearby fir, a small snow owl ruffled its feathers and turned its head, round eyes gleaming. The owl listened too, head tilted slightly, as if considering the notes. Down by the river, beneath its sheet of ice, water moved with dreamy slowness. It heard the music as a faint tapping through the frozen layer and answered with its own low murmuring. Even the snow seemed to lean in closer, the whole valley attentive, as the icicles dripped their soft song into the night. Leora found a smooth rock near the ridge where the snow had been cleared by wind. She brushed it off and sat down, drawing her shawl tighter. The cold seeped into her boots and tingled at her cheeks. But it was not an unpleasant cold. It felt clean, like cool water against tired eyes. Above her, the icicles continued their unhurried concert, each note spaced with generous silence, giving her thoughts time to dissolve. In that silence between notes, the world felt suspended. The village behind her, with its lamplight and stoves and familiar voices, seemed far away, though she knew it was only a short walk back along the path. Time itself felt as if it had loosened, slipping soft and slow like a river under ice. The usual threads of hours and minutes no longer tugged at her. There was only the next drop, the next delicate tone, and the space around it. As she listened, images began to drift gently through her mind. the way snowflakes drift through a beam of lantern light. She saw children asleep in their warm beds, dream faces peaceful. She saw elders curled in chairs by the fire, breathing evenly, mugs cooling beside them. She imagined the music of the icicles flowing invisibly over the village, seeping through the cracks of shutters and under doors, threading into the dim rooms like the softest of lullabies. Perhaps, she thought, this was why the village's dreams were so gentle in winter. The valley itself was singing them to sleep. The notes from the ridge were like tiny seeds that drifted down, settling on pillows, on folded hands, on closed eyelids, blooming into quiet dreams. Somewhere in the snow-dimmed distance, a fox padded along the edge of the trees, leaving delicate prints. Its fur was brushed with silver light, and its ears twitched at each faint chime. The fox moved without hurry, as though it too were lulled by the dripping music, weaving its path like a slow, thoughtful melody through the drifts. Above, the sky continued to darken, revealing more stars, a soft scattering across the velvet dome. Their light fell on the icicles, making them glow faintly, as if lit from within. Each droplet before it fell held a tiny star in its round surface, a perfect little world of light and night. Then the droplet would let go and slip down, turning that captured star into sound. The night deepened. The village settled more entirely into sleep. Windows dimmed. Voices fell silent. Only the occasional crackle of cooling chimneys and the distant rustle of snow sliding quietly from branches disturbed the hush, and still the icicles dripped their notes into the valley's vast, patient silence. Leora's eyes grew heavy. The stone beneath her was firm, but the rhythm of the drops and the softness of the night were like a blanket wrapped around her thoughts. She knew she would soon return home, back along the path, back to her small room with its quilt-covered bed and the faint scent of pine logs lingering in the air. But for now, she let herself rest there, half awake, half dreaming, listening. In her drifting state, she imagined she could hear words hidden within the music, not spoken aloud, but somehow present in the way the notes followed one another. They seemed to say that all things in the valley were being gently carried along. Snow would melt in its time. Rivers would run faster when they were ready. Buds would swell on branches when the earth turned again toward warmth. Nothing needed to be hurried. Nothing was late. The icicles knew this. They did not cling anxiously to their frozen shapes. They simply hung there, accepting the slow warmth, letting go of each drop as it grew heavy. Each note was a tiny surrender, and in each surrender there was music. Far below the ridge, beneath layers of rock and soil, the deep roots of ancient trees slept. They felt the faint tapping of the dripping water as a distant, soothing heartbeat. The roots dreamed of sap rising, of leaves unfolding. In their sleep, they reached toward that sound, comforted by its steady, patient rhythm. Even the mountains that guarded the valley seemed to listen. Their broad shoulders caught the starlight, their slopes wrapped in snow. They had watched countless winters come and go, watched the icicles form and vanish year after year. To them, this music was an old, familiar lullaby, one they associated with rest and quiet and the slow turning of time. Eventually, Leora rose from the stone, her limbs a little stiff, but her mind calm and clear as still water. The music of the icicles followed her as she walked back along the path, each soft note fading slowly behind her. As she reached her cottage door and slipped inside, she knew that the dripping would continue long into the night, singing above the snow, over the roofs, across the sleeping fields. She undressed and slipped beneath her quilt, feeling the warmth gather around her. As she lay there, eyes half closed, she imagined that the icicle notes were falling onto the roof, sliding through the thatch, drifting down like invisible snowflakes. They settled on her pillow, on the tips of her hair, on the edges of her thoughts. Each note that fell seemed to quiet another small corner of her mind until all that remained was a gentle, floating softness. Soon her breathing matched the slow, steady rhythm of the dripping outside, in the dimness of her room lit only by the faint glow of snow through the window. Leora's face relaxed into sleep. Her hands grew loose, her jaw soft. The music of the icicles, now distant, now near, guided her into dreams that were clear and gentle as morning frost. All through the valley, the same quiet process unfolded. In one house, a baker who had worried all day about flour and firewood turned over in his bed and let out a long, peaceful sigh, the sound easing into silence. In another, a child who had been restless finally settled, no longer troubled by strange thoughts. Somewhere, an elder who carried memories like heavy stones felt them grow lighter, as if they were being set down softly, one by one, in the snow. The dripping notes threaded through each home in their own invisible paths. They slipped past curtains, danced along beams, perched on bed frames, and then dissolved into the soft darkness, leaving deep quiet behind. The dreams they inspired were slow and kind, filled with calm rivers, easy skies, and long walks under friendly trees. As the night reached its deepest point, the dripping slowed. The air had cooled again, just enough for the water to hesitate at the icicle tips. Drops hung longer before falling, and the spaces between notes stretched wider, like pauses in a story told by a very patient voice. The music did not stop. It simply grew more spacious, giving even more room for silence. In that spaciousness, the valley rested. The houses rested. The animals in their dens and burrows rested. The river, thick with ice, rested. Every breath seemed to lengthen and soften, like the slow inhalation and exhalation of a single vast sleeper. The stars overhead watched calmly, reflections of their own steady light glittering in the frozen shapes along the ridge. For a moment, it was as if the sky and the icicles were mirrors of one another, both holding countless points of brightness, both singing in their own way of stillness and continuity. Hour by quiet hour, the night drifted on. Dreams deepened, thoughts ebbed away. The last droplets fell with almost imperceptible sounds, more felt than heard. Then even they paused, clinging like clear beads to the glassy tips. The music thinned to the softest whisper, then to the memory of a whisper. Yet the peace that the notes had laid across the valley remained, like a snow blanket that does not vanish with the first light. It rested on the roofs and in the hollows of the fields, in the curves of sleeping hands and the relaxed lines of resting faces. It lay in the quiet of each room, the gentle rise and fall of each chest. The ridge stood still, its icicles pale and shining in the last part of the night. The owl had tucked its head beneath its wing. The fox had curled in its den. Leora lay deeply asleep, her breath slow and even, her dreams tangled with soft sounds and shimmering light. And as the story of this night in the valley holds steady, everything becomes softer. The edges of the ridge blur, the village houses dim, even the stars seem to fade a little, not in sorrow, but in a natural, gentle way, as if the world itself were closing its eyes. Breath by breath, the scene recedes, less distinct, more like a dream you have already half forgotten. The dripping notes of the icicles become a faraway echo, then a feeling rather than a sound, then simply a calm that lingers in the chest. The snow-covered roofs drift away. The pine trees become shadows, then nothing at all. All that remains is the sense of deep, quiet rest, a valley of stillness within, where thoughts settle like snowflakes on a silent field. Muscles soften, the jaw loosens, the air moves in and out of the body in slow, easy waves, without effort. There is no need now to follow the story any longer. It has carried itself to a gentle pause. The icicles have finished their song for the night, and the notes have become part of a wider silence, kind and safe. Let that silence surround you like a warm blanket. Let it fill the corners of the room, the spaces between heartbeats, the gaps between breaths. There is nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to remember. Only this deep, soft rest. May your thoughts drift down, as tender and unhurried as snow falling through starlit air. May your dreams be as clear and gentle as the winter music that whispered across the valley. Sleep now, traveler of quiet stories. The night is kind and the world is at peace. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.